She hit the wooden floor on her knees before anyone stopped laughing. A sack of flour thudded onto the counter, and the town went quiet enough to hear her breath break. 10 years old. One trade. No way back. When a stranger stepped forward and paid for the flour, but not for the child, the choice fell on her shoulders like winter weight. Stay and be claimed by blood and law, or walk out and let the town decide what a child was worth. Boots shifted. Eyes watched. No one moved to help. Because when a town calls cruelty custom, silence becomes a verdict. Stay to see what she chose. Subscribe, watch to the end, and comment the city you're watching from. She hit the floor on her knees before the sound reached her ears. Wood bit through thin cloth. A sack split somewhere behind her, flour lifting into the air like a pale ghost. The man who dragged her in didn't loosen his grip. His fingers stayed knotted in her collar, as if she were something that might bolt. 10 years old, light enough to be pulled with one hand. The room smelled of leather and whiskey and heat trapped too long. Someone laughed once and stopped. Someone else looked at the floor. The man spoke loud, because loud made him feel right. He said he had a girl. He said he had debts. He said winter didn't wait. He said flour did. He said the words the way men do when they think words can carry weight. He shoved her forward, so she slid on her knees, another foot. Palms scraping splinters. A few white motes clung to her hair. She kept her eyes down because that was safer. Safer than faces. The counter creaked when the sack was dropped. 50 pounds, maybe more. He set his price by touching it, by patting it like a horse's neck. That, he said, and the medicine. He said it like a bargain, not a sentence. The shopkeeper's hands hovered, then fell. The bell above the door did not ring. The room went still enough to hear breath. She counted her breaths. 4 in, 5 out. If she cried, it would be worse. If she begged, it would be worse. The word wanted to leave her mouth anyway. Please. It stayed caught in her throat, where shame lived. I am small, she thought. I am light. I am... No, don't think that. A man stepped forward from the door, tall enough that the heat broke around him. He didn't hurry. He didn't smile. He looked at the sack first, then at the girl on the floor, then at the hand in her collar. He spoke to the room, not to the man. That isn't a sale. His voice was low and plain, the way fences are built to last. That's a theft with witnesses. The grip tightened. She's mine, the man said, and smiled because smiles could be weapons too. My girl. The woman came in behind the man, quiet as snow beginning. She didn't look at the sack. She looked at the girl's knees, the flour in her hair, the way the girl held herself small without being told. The woman's coat smelled of cold and soap. A leather notebook showed at her pocket. She set a hand on the counter, not claiming it, just grounding herself. If she's a person, she said, she decides. The word fell between them. Decides. It thudded like a dropped tool. The shopkeeper swallowed. The room shifted, a bench scraping. The man with the girl laughed again, louder, and the laugh slid off the walls. She's 10. The tall man reached into his coat and brought out coins. He counted them slow so everyone could hear. Silver made its own argument. He slid the money to the shopkeeper, not to the man. For the flour, he said, and the medicine. Put it on my account. He turned then, finally, to the girl. He crouched so his shadow didn't fall over her. "You don't owe me," he said. "You don't owe him. You can come with us or you can stay. That's the whole of it." A choice. When was the last time anyone had given her a choice? Her mouth opened. No sound came. The man's hand jerked her collar up, a warning without words. The woman spoke softly, not to break the moment. "Look at me," she said. The girl did. The woman's eyes were steady, kind, but not pleading. "Whatever you choose," she said, "we'll leave the money here. It's yours either way." The room leaned in. The bench stopped scraping. Somewhere, a small wooden nativity stood by the register. Mary chipped at the shoulder. Joseph's staff worn smooth by fingers waiting for change. A sprig of pine hung from a nail, the scent sharp and clean against old air. Someone had tried to make it Christmas. The man hissed, "Girl." Her knees hurt. Her palms burned. The word "please" finally broke loose, a whisper that surprised her. "I am not for sale," she thought. "I am not." She pushed her hands against the floor and stood. It took 2 tries. She slipped once, caught herself, stood again. She did not look back at the hand. She did not run. She walked. The bell over the door rang then, bright and wrong. Cold rushed in, a slap. Outside, the sky hung low and white. The woman draped her coat over the girl's shoulders without asking. The man waited until they were clear before lifting the sack and the paper-wrapped bottle, setting them by the door where anyone could see. "Take them," he said to the man inside, "or don't. But she's done." Behind them, a voice rose, cracked with fury and something like fear. "You can't—" The woman didn't turn. "Watch us," she said. They walked. The town's boardwalk creaked. Windows held faces like mirrors that refused to show you yourself. The girl's teeth chattered. She pressed her lips together. The man slowed his stride to match hers. He kept his hands to himself. That mattered. It mattered more than she knew how to say. "How old are you?" the woman asked. Not because she needed to know, but because speaking gave the cold somewhere to go. 10, the girl said. Her voice came out thin and surprised her again. She waited for the correction, the slap, of being told she was wrong about herself. None came. "What's your name?" the man asked. She told him. Saying it felt like setting something down and hoping it would still be there when she reached for it again. A gust carried the smell of baking from a back room. Someone making bread early, saving heat for later. Bells chimed once from the church at the end of the street, testing their throats for Sunday. The woman glanced that way, then back. "We'll go now," she said. "The weather's turning." At the edge of town, a shape detached itself from the white. A figure, unsteady. The girl felt the old fear move like a rat under her ribs. The man beside her shifted his weight. He didn't step in front of her. He stepped even. "Keep walking," he said to both of them. The figure shouted her name. The sound cracked. It chased them for 3 steps, then fell apart. The girl did not look back. She counted again. 4 in, 5 out. The woman's coat was warm. The man's pace did not change. What if he follows? What if he comes tonight? What if the money is gone and the bottle is empty and anger needs a place to land? The questions stacked. They always did. A choice didn't make them disappear. It made them sharper. They reached the road. The man's horse stamped, steam lifting from its nostrils. The woman helped the girl up, careful of her knees. "If you want to stop," she said, "say so. We'll stop." The girl shook her head. Snow began to fall, light as flour, the first flakes melting on her lashes. Somewhere behind them, a door slammed. Somewhere ahead, a lamp was lit early. The man took the reins. The woman tucked the girl's hands into her pockets. The horse stepped out. I didn't know it could be like this, she thought. Not safe, but chosen. The road took them out of town and into weather that had decided to make a point. Snow thickened, then thinned, then thickened again, like a hand testing a door. The horse settled into a patient walk. The girl learned the sound of its breath, learned how the man held the reins loose, learned that the woman watched the girl's hands more than the sky. That mattered. People who watched hands knew when a child was about to vanish inside herself. They didn't speak for a while. The town fell behind them in a hush, boards and windows and faces shrinking until there was only white and the low line of cottonwoods. The girl's knees ached in a way that came with heat now, not splinters. She tucked her chin into the woman's coat and counted the jingle of the harness. Each sound said still moving. Each sound said not alone. Your fingers, the woman said gently. They're white. The girl tried to loosen them and couldn't. The woman took them one at a time, rubbing warmth back into them with small circles. She did it without asking permission and without claiming ownership. There was a difference. The girl watched her do it and felt the wanting rise, sharp and embarrassing. Wanting always came with a bill later. The man cleared his throat. There's a place ahead, he said. We'll stop if you need. What if? The word jumped out before the girl could stop it. She swallowed. What if he comes? The man didn't answer fast. He looked at the tracks behind them, at the way snow was already filling them in. Then we'll stand, he said. And if standing isn't enough, we'll keep standing. It was a promise shaped like a fence post. Not pretty, useful. They stopped where the road bent, where a small shed leaned against the wind. Someone had nailed a star to its door years ago. It hung crooked now, tin dulled by seasons. Inside, the man lit a lantern. The flame steadied. The woman poured water from a canteen into a cup and held it until steam rose. The girl drank. The water tasted of metal and relief. You don't owe us, the woman said again, as if the words needed practice to stay true. You don't owe work. You don't owe thanks. You don't owe your name. The girl nodded because nodding was easier than trusting. The lantern hissed. Snow whispered at the walls. The woman reached into her pocket and brought out a small ribbon, red, frayed at the edge. She set it on the crate between them and left it there. Someone gave me this once, she said, when I needed a marker. You can leave it, or take it. Either way, it's not a price. The girl stared at the ribbon. Red was loud against gray. Red was the color of church doors at Christmas. The way someone tried to make joy visible even when everything else was stripped bare. She touched it. Her hand shook. She pulled it back. A question hovered sharp as cold. What if I stay? the girl said. What happens then? The man leaned against the wall, not crowding. Then you stay, he said. We'll feed you. You'll sleep. Tomorrow we'll talk. Or we won't. It's not a trick. And if I go back? The question stayed in her chest, unwelcome and heavy. Going back had rules she understood. Staying did not. Unknown was its own weather. They left the shed and took the road again. Dusk came early. The first house rose out of the trees like a thought you hadn't meant to have. A lamp burned in the window. The girl smelled bread and something sweet. Molasses, maybe. And the wanting came back, so strong it hurt. The woman noticed and smiled, a small thing, like letting a door stay open an inch. Inside, the house was warm in the way that told you it had been warmed on purpose. There were boots by the door, small ones and larger ones, lined up without argument. The girl counted them without meaning to. The woman took the girl's coat and hung it where it could drain. She did not hang the girl herself. 3 children paused in the doorway. They didn't rush. They didn't hide. They looked, and looking was its own test. One of them held a wooden figure with a chipped face. The girl recognized it. Joseph again, his staff worn smooth. A set traveled. Faith did that. This is our guest, the woman said. She can have soup first. Soup came. Thick, honest. The girl ate slow because fast made you sick later. The man sat where he could see the door and the window and the children all at once. He ate last. That mattered too. Are you staying? One of the children asked. Not unkind, just curious in the way that was dangerous. The girl set her spoon down. The room waited. The woman's hands were still. The man's eyes did not push. I don't know, the girl said. It felt like a lie and a truth at the same time. That's fine, the woman said. We don't either. After supper, the woman brought out a book and showed the girl letters that lived like animals, some sharp, some round. The girl traced them with her finger. The shapes were not cruel. They did not strike when she made a mistake. She traced again. The children leaned in. The lantern hummed. A knock came at the door. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The girl's body knew the sound. Her heart took off without her. The man stood, slow. The woman closed the book with a finger marking the page. Stay here, she said to the children. To the girl, softer. You don't have to decide anything tonight. The man opened the door a hand's width. Cold pushed in. A voice came with it, thick and familiar and angry. She's mine. The man didn't raise his voice. Not tonight. You paid, the voice said. That makes her. It paid for flour, the man said. And medicine. You took it. That's done. A shape pressed against the gap. The smell of whiskey cut through bread and soap. The woman moved to stand beside the man, not behind him. She held the ribbon in her hand, now wound around her fingers like a promise she was ready to break if she had to. The girl stood anyway. Her legs carried her before her mind could stop them. She came to the doorway, and the cold took her breath. She looked at the man in the snow. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands shook. He saw her and smiled like a hook. Come, he said. We'll talk. She didn't answer. She didn't move. The woman spoke instead. She'll decide in the morning, she said. with daylight, with witnesses. There's a church, the man at the door sneered. You think God's watching? The girl surprised herself. I am, she said. The words cut her tongue. They stood there, small and true. Silence fell again, thick as soup. Somewhere a child sniffed. The man in the snow spat and turned away, boots crunching hard. The sound faded. The door closed. The man slid the bolt. The woman let out a breath she'd been saving. The girl's hands shook. The woman wrapped them in the red ribbon and held them still. You did well, she said. Not brave, not strong. Well, it was enough. They prayed before bed, not with words the girl knew, not with demands. The woman lit a small candle and set it by the window. For the road, she said, and for the ones who need it. The flame leaned but did not go out. The girl lay down on a bed that did not move when she breathed. The wanting eased into something like sleep. Outside, snow kept falling, patient as flour. Tomorrow waited, sharp and bright. The choice waited with it. Morning came without asking permission. Light pressed at the window like a palm, pale and steady. Snow had worked all night, smoothing the world into something that looked gentle if you didn't know better. The girl woke before the house did. She lay still, listening for footsteps that weren't there, for a voice that would pull her back into a shape she already knew. Nothing came. Only the soft crack of wood cooling, the slow breath of the house. She sat up. The bed held. It didn't sag. That small mercy made her chest tighten. Wanting stirred again, quieter now, dangerous because it felt possible. She dressed without being told. Her knees ached less. The ribbon lay on the chair where the woman had set it, red against pine. The girl wrapped it around her wrist once, not a bow, just a mark she could see. She paused at the door. Habit told her to wait. She didn't. She opened it. The kitchen was already awake. The woman stood at the table, sleeves rolled, flour on her knuckles. Bread rose under a cloth, patient. The man sat with a mug, steam lifting, eyes on the window like it might argue with him. He looked up when the girl came in and nodded once, as if greeting an equal. Morning, the woman said. She didn't ask how the girl slept. She slid a plate across the table. An egg, cracked just right. The girl ate slow. The children drifted in, rubbing eyes, quiet in that first light. No one stared. No one counted her bites. That mattered. After, the woman wiped her hands and took down her coat. We'll walk, she said. It's clear enough. She said it like a fact, not a plan that could be taken away. The road back to town had changed. Snow softened the edges, hid the old scars. Tracks crossed and disappeared. The girl watched them vanish and felt a strange relief. The man walked a pace ahead, not leading, just present. The woman stayed even with the girl. Their boots found a rhythm. The world kept time. At the bend where the shed leaned, the woman stopped. She reached into her pocket and brought out the notebook. She didn't open it. She set it back. Last night doesn't bind you, she said. Neither does this morning. What if I don't choose? The girl asked. The question had weight now. It had lived through the night. Then that's a choice too, the woman said. We'll carry it until you're ready. They walked on. The town came into view, smaller than the girl remembered. Smoke lifted straight. A bell rang once, testing. Sunday. The girl's mouth went dry. Church meant faces. Faces meant counting. They reached the edge where the boardwalk began. The man slowed. "I'll wait," he said. He did not step into town. That mattered too. The woman and the girl went on. The shop door stood open. Inside, the counter bore a white smear where the sack had split. Someone had swept, but not hard enough. Flour clung to the cracks. The girl's stomach tightened. The woman's hand hovered near her back and then fell away. No pushing. The shopkeeper stood behind the counter, hat in his hands. He looked older in daylight. "Mornin'," he said, and his voice was careful, like it might break if used wrong. He stopped. He swallowed. "You can stand there," he said to the girl. "You don't have to come in." The girl stood. The doorway held. People drifted in, slow, curious. The pastor came, collar straight, eyes tired. A deputy leaned on the post, thumbs hooked, waiting to see which way the wind leaned today. The nativity still stood by the register. Someone had set the star straight. The man came then, boots loud, smell of whiskey chased by cold. He pushed past without asking. His eyes found the girl and stuck. "There you are," he said. He smiled the way he always did when he thought the end was already written. "Come on." The woman spoke first. "She'll speak," she said, "if she wants." He laughed. "She's a child." "So was the carpenter's son," the woman said, mild. "He still had a voice." The room shifted. The deputy cleared his throat. The girl felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders, heavy as a sack. She looked at the floor. She saw the flower. She saw her knees there again, her hands curled, the ribbon pressed into her skin. "I'm not for sale," she said. The words came out stronger than she felt. They hung. She kept going because stopping would kill them. "You took the flower. You took the medicine. That was the trade. I didn't agree to it." "I'm your father," the man said, louder. "You belong to me." The girl lifted her head. Faces watched, some hard, some soft, some afraid of choosing. "I belong to myself," she said. The sentence was too big. It fit anyway. "I'm staying where I'm fed without being counted." A murmur rose. The shopkeeper's hat twisted. The pastor stepped forward and then stopped. The deputy shifted his weight again. No one moved fast. That was its own kind of mercy. The man stepped closer. His shadow crossed the flower. His hand lifted. The girl did not move. She waited for the blow she knew by heart. It did not come. "Enough," the shopkeeper said. The word surprised everyone, including him. "You got paid. You got more than you deserved." His voice shook. He steadied it. "You don't get to finish it." The man stared at him, at the room, at the faces that had found a spine too late and decided to use it now. He spat. The sound cracked. "You'll be back," he said to the girl. "They always are." The woman didn't answer. She didn't argue. She took the girl's hand. The ribbon brushed her palm. They turned. The door rang. Cold came in and left again. Outside, the man waited. He did not ask. He did not smile. He simply stood. The girl stepped onto the boardwalk. The town watched her go. She walked. Each step was a cut and a stitch at once. At the bend, she stopped. The town fell away behind her. Snow began again, light and steady. She breathed. 4 in, 5 out. The wanting rose and settled. She turned to the woman. The words stuck. She swallowed. "Can I?" She stopped. The man and the woman waited. They did not fill the space with sound. "Can I come back?" She finished, small. The woman nodded. No triumph. No tears. "Yes," she said, "for as long as you choose." They walked. The tracks filled in behind them. The road did not argue. Somewhere ahead, a lamp waited to be lit. The girl touched the ribbon and kept walking, carrying a choice like a fragile thing that had learned how to breathe. The house took them back without ceremony. No door creaked like a promise. No fire flared to prove a point. It was simply there, warm because someone had tended it, solid because someone had fixed what broke. The girl stepped inside and paused, waiting for the rule she had missed. None came. The man hung his coat. The woman set a kettle on. The children scattered and returned with small offerings: an apple with a bruise, a pencil worn to a stub, a chair pulled out and pushed back again. The girl took it all in like weather. She learned the sound of the place, the tick of the clock that ran a hair slow, the scrape of the broom that caught on the same nail every pass, the hiss of the kettle before it sang. These were not kind sounds. They were honest. They told you where you stood. "Your bed's made," the woman said, as if beds belonged to days, not to people. "If you want it." The girl nodded and followed. The room smelled faintly of soap and wood. A quilt lay folded, its stitches uneven, colors chosen from what was left rather than what was best. The girl touched the edge and pulled her hand back, wanting again. Always the wanting. She put her things down, things being the ribbon and a spare pair of socks the woman had pressed into her hands without comment. She sat on the bed and stood again. The bed didn't move. She sat again. This time she stayed. At the table later, the woman laid out rules the way you lay out tools. We eat together when we can. We speak plain. We don't strike. We ask before taking. We tell the truth, even when it costs. She paused. "You can add to this." The girl searched for the trick. Found none. "I don't steal," she said finally. It felt like a vow you made to yourself in a mirror that might shatter. The woman nodded, wrote it down, and that was that. The man cleared his throat. "You don't have to work," he said, eyes on his hands. "If you want to help, we'll say how and when. If not..." He stopped. He didn't finish because finishing would have made it sound like a deal. The girl looked at the children. One of them had a chipped mug and held it like it mattered. "I can peel," she said. "Potatoes." "Good," the woman said. "We need them peeled." They worked. The girl's hands found a rhythm. Peel, drop, turn. Peel, drop, turn. The peel fell into a bowl like pale ribbons. She cut one knuckle and flinched, waiting. The woman reached for a cloth, wrapped it once, not too tight. "You're fine," she said. "Not brave, not clumsy, Fine. It settled something. That night, a knock came again, softer this time, the sound of someone who had learned to ask. The man answered. The shopkeeper stood there with his hat crushed and a loaf wrapped in paper. He stopped. For the house. He didn't look at the girl. He didn't need to. He set the loaf down and left. The girl watched from the doorway and felt the room tilt a degree toward balance. Later, the woman brought out a small pine branch and set it on the mantel. A candle followed. Just light, she said, as if light needed permission. The flame made the room look kinder than it was. The girl stared at it until the wanting softened into something like calm. What if it ends tomorrow? The thought slid in and sat. She peeled another potato. She peeled it clean. Morning brought chores and a cold that bit sharper. The girl learned the path to the pump, the way the handle complained before it gave. She learned which step on the porch would catch your heel. The man showed her how to hold a hammer without striking her thumb. He didn't praise. He didn't scold. He demonstrated once and let her try. When she missed, he waited. When she hit, he nodded. That nod felt like a coin you earned by standing upright. At midday, a runner came up the road, breath ragged. He spoke to the man low. The man's jaw tightened. He nodded once. The runner left. The girl felt it before it was said. Bad news had a temperature. "What is it?" she asked, and surprised herself by asking. The man looked at the woman. The woman looked back. They did not hide. She stopped, chose a word that did less damage. The man from town hasn't eaten. He spent the night at the livery. He's sick. The girl's chest pinched. The wanting turned sour. Because of me, she said. The old rule reached for her like a hand. No, the woman said, firm. Because of choices, not yours. But the girl couldn't finish. The picture rose uninvited. Empty hands, a bottle dry, anger with nowhere to go. The woman took the ribbon from the girl's wrist and laid it on the table. This is where lines live, she said. We can cross them, or we can see them. What do you want? The man said nothing. The house listened. The girl stared at the ribbon. Red against wood. Christmas red. Blood red. She thought of the flour on the floor, the medicine in paper, the way debt grew teeth. If we help, she said slowly, he'll come back. Yes, the woman said. He might. And if we don't, he might die, the woman said. She did not soften it. The girl closed her eyes. I am not for sale, she thought. I am not. She opened them. Send the medicine, she said. Not the flour. The man let out a breath he'd been holding. I'll take it, he said. No, the girl said. Her voice shook and held. I will. She looked at the woman. With you. They went together. The town watched from windows again. This time the girl felt their eyes and did not shrink. At the livery, the man lay on straw, skin gray, eyes dull. The woman set the bottle down and spoke plain. This doesn't buy anything, she said. It ends nothing. It doesn't start again. He laughed, weak and ugly. You think you're better. I think she is, the woman said, and that was all. The girl set the bottle where he could reach it. and stepped back. The wanting surged and broke. She did not stay to watch him drink. She turned and left. The line held. Back at the house, the children watched her like she'd done something magic. She shook her head. "Just a thing," she said, "that needed doing." Saying it made it true enough. Days stacked. Snow came and went. The girl learned letters in the evenings, traced words that meant food and weather and time. She learned how to split kindling and how not to. She learned that being asked didn't always mean being taken. Then a knock came that did not ask. Boots hard, voices sharp. The deputy stood on the step, hat low. "We need to talk," he said, "about custody." The girl's heart leapt and fell. The word felt like a net. The man stood even. The woman stepped forward. "Now?" she asked. "Now," the deputy said, eyes sliding past to the girl. "He's making noise." The house went quiet. The pine candle flickered. The girl tasted iron. What if standing isn't enough? The question burned. "We'll come," the woman said, "in daylight." They walked again. The town felt closer this time, like a hand that had learned where to grab. At the office, papers lay stacked, neat as lies. The man from town stood there, steadier now, anger back in its old place. He smiled when he saw the girl. The smile didn't hook. It slid off. "She's mine," he said. The woman laid her notebook on the desk and opened it. Not to a law, to dates, to notes, to names of people who had seen. "She chose," she said, "twice." The deputy rubbed his face. He looked tired. The room leaned. The girl stepped forward. Her knees did not buckle. "I choose where I'm fed without being counted," she said, "where I'm asked before I'm taken." The words were hers now. She held them like a tool. Silence stretched. The pine candle burned down a fraction. Somewhere a bell rang, calling late. The deputy cleared his throat. "We'll see," he said. Not yes. Not no. A hinge. Outside, snow began again, patient as always. The girl breathed. 4 in, 5 out. The wanting eased into resolve. This house wasn't hers yet. That was the truth. But she was in it. And tonight, that would have to be enough. Night settled early, the kind that pressed its weight into the corners. The house took it in stride. Supper was quieter than usual. Bowls scraped clean, spoons set down without clatter. The children watched the girl the way you watch weather you don't trust yet. The woman read from the book by lamplight. Not lessons now. Just sound to keep the dark from getting ideas. The man sat where he always did, eyes on the door, hands open. The girl slept in short pulls. Dreams came thin and sharp, boards under her knees, flour dust in her hair, a smile like a hook. She woke before dawn with the taste of iron in her mouth and the feeling that something had crossed a line she could not see. She dressed and stepped into the kitchen. The woman was already there, coat on, notebook in hand. The kettle had not been set. That mattered. "There's talk," the woman said, not looking up. "He didn't take the medicine." The words landed heavy. The girl's first thought was small and mean. Good. It scared her enough to make her ashamed. She pressed her hands together until the ribbon bit. "Is he?" "Alive," the woman said, "but not well. He sold the bottle." The man came in then, boots wet with early snow. For whiskey, he said. He said it like a fact that didn't need more words. He's been telling anyone who'll listen that we stole you. The girl swallowed. Stolen was a word she knew. It crawled. What happens now? The man did not answer fast. He hung his coat. He set his hat down. These small rituals kept him from saying the wrong thing. Noise, he said at last. And paper. Paper. The girl thought of the desk, the neat stacks, the hinge word. Custody. The wanting rose, bitter. She imagined herself written down wrong, a mistake with a seal on it. We have a choice, the woman said. She set the notebook on the table, closed. We can send flour, or we can send nothing. The girl stared at the table. Wood grain like roads. If we send flour, she said, slow, he eats, and he comes back. Yes, the woman said, and if we don't, he might not make it, the woman said, again not softening. Silence spread. The house listened. Outside, wind worried the eaves. Somewhere, a bell practiced a note and gave up. The girl closed her eyes. I am not for sale. She opened them. The ribbon lay where she'd left it last night, a line drawn in red. Send the flour, she said. The word surprised her by not breaking. But not to him. The man lifted his head. To who? To the church, the girl said. Let them give it. Not us. No debt to us. The woman's eyes shone, quick and gone. That holds, she said. It holds the line. They moved before doubt could get its boots on. The man loaded a sack, shouldered it. The woman wrapped a note and sealed it. The girl followed, hands empty on purpose. At the church, the door opened to warmth and the smell of old pine. The pastor took the sack and the note and nodded, face grave. I'll see to it, he said. He did not ask names. They turned to leave and found the man from town on the steps, gray and shaking, anger dulled by hunger into something raw. He saw the sack gone and snarled. You think you can make me beg? The woman stepped between him and the girl, not shielding, just marking space. No, she said. We think you can eat. He laughed, a sound like tearing cloth. She owes me. The girl spoke before fear could claim her tongue. I owe you nothing, she said. You took what you were given. His hand lifted, slow, uncertain. The man beside her did not move. He did not threaten. He simply existed, solid as a post. The man's hand fell. You'll regret this, he said, and turned away. Back at the house, the day tried to go on. The children practiced sums. The woman wrote letters that did not promise anything. The man fixed a hinge that had never asked for it. The girl swept. Each stroke pushed flour she could not see toward a place it might not matter. At dusk, a knock came that asked nothing. 2 men stood on the step. One wore a badge, one did not. The deputy's mouth was a line. We need statements, he said. Now. They went. The office smelled of ink and old tobacco. Paper waited. The man from town sat at the desk, bandage on his hand, eyes bright with a story he'd practiced. They bribed, he said. They coerced. The woman opened her notebook and slid it forward. Dates, names, notes of who saw what and when. The deputy's eyes flicked. He frowned. He looked tired in a way that meant the day had asked him to choose too often. Say it, the deputy said to the girl. Not unkind, just necessary. The girl felt the room lean. She thought of the sack on the floor, the medicine on the counter, the coat on her shoulders. She thought of the line. I chose, she said, before money changed hands. Twice. Children don't choose, the man said. Quick. The deputy held up a hand. They do when the choice is whether to be sold. Silence. The hinge creaked. The deputy scratched a note. We'll set a hearing, he said, after Christmas. Christmas. The word fell like snow, a deadline dressed as mercy. They walked home under stars that looked close enough to touch. The girl counted them without meaning to. The wanting settled into something hard and bright. After Christmas, a line you could see. At home, the woman lit the candle by the window. The flame leaned. The girl sat and traced letters. The man sharpened a knife and put it away. They slept. Morning brought a rumor like smoke. The girl heard it before she saw it, in the way the shopkeeper looked at her hands, in the way a neighbor pressed bread into the woman's arms and wouldn't meet her eyes. He's saying you bought her, the neighbor whispered. Says it loud. They always do, the woman said. She thanked her for the bread. She closed the door. The girl felt the old heat climb. Bought, burden, worthless. The words knocked. She did not open. She took the ribbon from her wrist and tied it to the chair back, a mark that said, here. Then she went outside and split kindling until her arms burned and the thoughts fell apart. By afternoon, the church bell rang again. The pastor came, hat in hand. He ate, he said. He cursed. He ate again. He hesitated. He's going to town tonight. The man nodded. We'll be ready. Ready did not mean a fight. It meant chairs set back, lamps trimmed, witnesses invited without saying the word. The woman set out cups. The girl stood at the window and watched snow start again, patient as ever. He came at dark with two others, breath loud, courage borrowed. She's mine, he said at the door, and tried to step in. The man blocked him with a shoulder and no words. The woman stood beside them, notebook in hand, candlelight steady on her face. The girl came forward and stood where she could be seen, not hidden, seen. I chose, she said, for the third time. I choose again. The others shifted. Borrowed courage returned to its owners. Someone coughed. The man looked at the girl and saw, perhaps for the first time, that the thing he wanted was not where he'd left it. He spat and turned. Boots retreated. The house breathed. After, the girl's hands shook. The woman wrapped them in the ribbon, held them until the shaking passed. The line held, she said. The girl nodded. I didn't know it could, she thought. Not always. But tonight. The candle burned low. Outside, snow erased the road. Inside, a choice learned how to stand. The cold settled into the bones the way truth does when it's done running. Snow kept coming, soft as a promise that didn't ask permission. The house learned new sounds. Wood contracting. The stove ticking down to quiet. The small breath of the girl in sleep that went shallow when dreams crowded too close. Morning brought paper. The woman spread it across the table, lines straight as fence posts. The man stood by the window and watched the road that did not show itself. The girl traced the letters without reading them. Her hands knew the shape of choice now, even if her mouth still stumbled over the words. "They'll ask again," the woman said. "Same questions, louder." The girl nodded. She tied the ribbon once, twice. The man lifted his coat from the peg and paused. "You don't have to come," he said, meaning the room, meaning the day. "I do," the girl said. The wanting to hide rose and fell. "If I don't, they'll tell it for me." They left before the light learned how to stand up. The church sat white against white, a hymn drifting through the door like a breath you could borrow. Inside, a tree stood undecorated, but for a single star cut from paper, pinned a little crooked. Someone had tried. The hearing room smelled of wool and damp boots, benches filled with rolls before faces. The deputy sat at the table with ink that had seen better days. The man from town arrived with a grin sharpened for winter. He nodded to the room like it owed him something. "State your claim," the deputy said. "She's mine," the man said. He said it fast, like speed might make it stick. "My blood." The woman did not open her notebook yet. The man did not move. The girl felt the room lean again, felt the old heat, bought, burden. She waited. "State your evidence," the deputy said. He talked. He talked about hunger like it was a license. He talked about rights like they were teeth. He talked about rescue like it was theft. He did not talk about the floor. He did not talk about the sack. When he finished, the room breathed. The woman slid the notebook forward. Dates. Witnesses. A list of what changed hands and what did not. "No purchase," she said. "A choice. Twice." The deputy frowned. He read. He read again. He looked at the girl. "Do you understand what's being asked of you?" She stood. The bench creaked. "Yes." "Say it." She felt the ribbon bite. She thought of the candle. She thought of the bell. "I chose to leave," she said. "I choose to stay." The man from town laughed. "She's a child." The deputy's pen paused. "Children can choose when the choice is whether to be sold." The laugh died. Outside, a carol started and stopped, unsure of itself. Someone cleared a throat. The deputy rubbed his eyes. "There will be conditions," he said. "Winter's hard. I won't have blood on paper." "Name them," the woman said. "Food," he said. "Schooling, and Sundays." The woman nodded. "Agreed." The man from town surged. "And visitation." The room tightened. The girl's heart kicked. The man beside her took a step, then stopped himself. The woman closed her notebook. "No," she said. "Not loud, not soft. Contact supervised by the church, if the child asks." All eyes went to the girl. The wanting rose again, sharper. If she said yes, the road would never close. If she said no, the door would slam. She swallowed. "No," she said. "Not now." The deputy wrote. Ink scratched like a small animal. "Not now," he read back. He signed. He looked up. "After Christmas," he said, again like mercy. They left into falling snow that felt heavier than before. The girl did not cry until the door closed behind them. The woman held her without saying it would be fine. The man stood guard by the window, a quiet promise that did not need words. That night, the house learned a new shape of quiet. Supper tasted of salt and something else, a sweetness that wasn't sugar. The children watched the girl and waited for her to say something clever. She did not. She ate. That was enough. Later, when the others slept, the girl stood by the window and counted flakes until numbers fell apart. I am still here, she thought, and the thought hurt like a bruise you pressed on purpose. Morning came with a knock that asked again. The deputy stood with a paper folded wrong. He broke the condition, he said, tried the back door of the church, took bread. The woman closed her eyes. The man cursed once, low. The girl felt the line shake. We'll go, the woman said. They found the man from town sitting on the steps, bread half-eaten, hands shaking. He looked smaller, like winter had taken something back. He looked at the girl with something like confusion. I just wanted... Stop, the woman said. She knelt, not close enough to touch. You want food. You get food. You want control. You don't. He stared. He dropped the bread. Snow took it. The deputy wrote again. Paper kept count when people wouldn't. There will be consequences, he said. The man from town spat. You think a paper can stop hunger? No, the woman said, but it can stop you. They walked home under a sky that practiced blue and failed. The girl's steps felt heavier. Every choice seemed to drag a tail. By afternoon, the rumor changed shape. Not bought, rescued, not stolen, saved. The words mattered, then didn't. A woman from 3 houses down brought oranges, a miracle in winter. For the little one, she said, and smiled like she meant it. That night, the woman set out candles, just one more than yesterday. The girl watched the flame and felt the pull. What if I ruin it? She said. What if I make it worse? The man answered this time. You didn't start it, he said. You don't finish it. They sang badly, a hymn that remembered light when the dark tried to take credit. The girl's voice shook, then steadied. The wanting loosened its grip, just a little. 2 days before Christmas, the man from town came again, alone. He stood at the gate and did not cross it. Snow stuck to his beard like an accusation. I'm cold, he said. He did not say anything else. The woman did not look at the girl. The man did. He waited. The girl walked to the fence. She did not open it. There's soup, she said, at the church. He swallowed. You won't... No, she said. Not now. He nodded. He turned. He walked the long way, like someone learning roads have rules. On Christmas Eve, the house filled with small mercies. Bread rose, oranges shone. The tree wore a ribbon cut in 2. The girl tied one half to the chair and kept the other in her pocket, a promise that did not rush. The bell rang once, then again. Snow came down like forgiveness you didn't have to accept. The woman read a story she knew by heart, about a child laid where animals breathed. The girl listened and felt the old heat cool into something she could carry. At midnight, the man stepped outside and looked at the sky. The girl joined him. Is it over? She asked. He did not lie. No, he said, but it's yours. She nodded. She knew the difference now. The road would come back when it wanted. Paper would try to be brave. Hunger would test the fence. But tonight, the line held. And the girl stood on the right side of it, hands empty, heart full enough to sleep. The morning after Christmas did not arrive with a bow. It came gray and exacting, the way mornings do when mercy has been spent and habit takes over. Snow lay where it had fallen, clean enough to make the world look honest. The girl woke to the sound of the stove being coaxed awake and the small thud of boots by the door. She lay still until her breath found a rhythm she trusted. In the kitchen, the woman folded paper into neat piles. The man stood with his back to the room, counting the horizon through frost. No one spoke at first. Words had learned to wait here. "They set the date," the woman said, finally. "Today." The words sat heavy. Today meant faces. Today meant paper that would try to decide things it could not understand. The girl tied the ribbon and felt the bite. She nodded once. They walked into town with the quiet confidence of people who had already decided how they would stand. The road did not argue. At the square, benches had been dragged into a crooked order. People gathered in coats that had seen better winters. The church bell did not ring. It listened. The deputy stood by the table. A pastor waited nearby, hands folded. The shopkeeper hovered at the edge, hat turning slow. The man from town had arrived early. He stood with two others who kept their eyes on the ground. He looked steadier than he had days ago, steadier in the way a man looks when he has rehearsed his anger until it felt like truth. "State your name," the deputy said. The girl did. Saying it felt like placing a stone on a cairn that might last. "State your choice," the deputy said, and the square leaned in. The man from town laughed, quick and sharp. "She doesn't know what she's choosing." The woman did not open her notebook. The man did not move. The girl felt the wanting surge. Run, hide, let someone else speak. She swallowed. The ribbon pressed into her skin like a reminder that lines mattered. "I choose to stay," she said. "Where I'm fed without being counted. Where I'm asked before I'm taken." A murmur rose, fell. Someone coughed. Snow slipped from a roof and thudded. "You're a child," the man said. "You belong with your blood." The girl looked at him. She saw the familiar shapes, anger dressed as right, fear dressed as claim. She breathed, 4 in, 5 out. "Blood didn't keep me warm," she said. "Choice did." The deputy rubbed his eyes. "There will be questions," he said. To the square. "And answers. Keep it plain." Questions came like stones. Who fed you? Who taught you? Who paid? The woman answered when asked, short and true. The man answered when needed, shorter still. The girl answered last. Each time the square shifted a degree, as if learning where weight could be placed. Then the shopkeeper stepped forward. His voice shook and steadied. "I saw the floor," he said. "I saw the sack. I saw the hand." He took his hat off. "I didn't stop it. That's on me. But I won't lie about it now." The man from town turned on him. "You'll regret—" "Enough," the deputy said. He wrote. Ink scratched. Paper learned something new. The pastor spoke next, voice mild. "Food was given without condition, supervised, witnessed." He looked at the girl. She spoke plainly. The man from town surged. "You're stealing my child." The woman finally opened her notebook, not to dates, to a single page. She slid it forward. "This is her statement," she said, written with her hand. "You can read it, or you can hear it." The deputy nodded to the girl. She stepped forward. The bench creaked. The square held its breath. She read. Her voice wobbled once and found itself again. I choose where I'm fed without being counted, she read. Where I'm asked before I'm taken. I will learn. I will help. I will tell the truth. I ask to stay. Silence followed, clean and hard. Snow began again, light as flour. The deputy closed the notebook. We'll stand on that, he said. For now, the man from town echoed, bitter. For now, the deputy said again, firmer. Supervision remains. No contact unless requested by the child. Any breach. He let the rest hang. The man from town spat and turned away. He did not look back. His boots cut the snow like they were marking something he hoped would still be there later. The square exhaled. People drifted. The shopkeeper wiped his face. The pastor rang the bell once, unsure, then stopped. The girl felt her knees threaten and held them. They walked home. The road felt longer, like it had learned how to ask something back. At the gate, the man stopped. You did it, he said, and meant the standing, not the outcome. The girl shook her head. We did. At the house, warmth waited. The children crowded and then remembered themselves. The woman set soup on. Ordinary acts found their places again. That afternoon, the man from town came to the fence. He did not cross it. He stood with his hands visible, a new trick he had learned. They say I can't, he said. They say I shouldn't. He looked at the girl. You happy? The question landed crooked. The girl considered. Happiness felt too big, like a coat that swallowed you. I'm safe, she said. I'm learning. He nodded, as if those were foreign words. I was cold, he said. I didn't know what else to do. The woman did not answer. The man did not move. The girl felt the pull. Fix it, soften it, make it right. She pressed the ribbon. There's soup, she said. At the church. He looked at the house, at the light in the window, at the fence that had learned how to be a fence. He nodded and turned away. The line held. Evening came. The woman brought out the book. The girl traced letters and made mistakes that were not punished. The man sharpened tools and put them away. Outside, Snow practiced patience. Later, when the house slept, the girl woke and sat by the window. The wanting rose, then settled. She thought of the square, the voices, the paper that tried to be brave. She thought of the fence and the soup, and the way saying no had felt like a door closing and a window opening at the same time. I chose, she thought. The thought hurt and healed in equal measure. Morning would bring more questions. Winter would bring its own. But tonight, the choice had weight. Tonight, it could stand. The next days did not hurry. They settled like snow that knew it would be stepped on. The house learned a new rhythm. Quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The girl woke earlier now, not from fear, but from habit. She split kindling until her palms warmed, fed the stove until it sighed. The wanting still came, but it came softer, like a knock that waited to be answered. Town changed in small ways first. A loaf left on the step, and no one knocking to be thanked. A neighbor's eyes meeting hers and not sliding away. The shopkeeper tipped his hat without smiling. It wasn't kindness yet. It was recognition. That mattered. The woman kept writing. Letters went out, and came back with creases that told you they'd been read more than once. The man fixed a fence that hadn't asked for it and found a nail bent just enough to be dangerous. He straightened it and drove it home. He did not comment. The girl watched and learned how patience looked in a body. On the fourth morning, the deputy arrived without his badge showing. He stood at the threshold and waited to be invited. That mattered too. "There's talk," he said once seated. "About schooling, about Sundays." The woman nodded. We agreed. The girl felt the old pinch. School meant eyes. Sundays meant benches. The deputy noticed her hands and waited. "You don't have to answer now," he said, "but they'll ask." "I'll go," the girl said. The word surprised her by not breaking. "I want to read the notices myself." The deputy smiled once, brief and gone. "Fair," he said. Sunday came bright and cold. The church filled slow, the way people do when they're not sure where they belong. The girl sat between the woman and the man. The bench was hard. She counted breaths. The hymn rose and wobbled and found its way anyway. The nativity sat near the front, Mary's chipped shoulder catching the light. The girl watched it and felt something ease. After, people stood around pretending to wait for no one. The pastor spoke of roads and stars and the trouble with counting blessings out loud. He did not look at the girl when he said it. That was a gift. Outside, a voice called her name. She turned. The man from town stood at the edge of the yard, hat in his hands like he was trying a new shape. He did not cross the line. He did not smile. "They say I can talk," he said. "Here." The woman looked at the girl. The man did not move. The girl stepped forward until the fence met her hip. "Say it," she said. He swallowed. His eyes were red, not with drink this time, but something that burned slower. "I didn't know how," he said. "That's all." The girl felt the pull, the old urge to make room for someone else's weather. She pressed the ribbon, felt the bite. "You knew how to sell," she said. "You didn't know how to stop." His mouth opened, closed. He nodded once. "I'll bring wood," he said, "if that's allowed." The woman answered before the girl could. "To the church," she said, "if you want." He nodded again. He turned and walked away without taking anything with him. The line held. School began on a Tuesday that pretended to be ordinary. The room smelled of chalk and wool. The girl sat straight. Letters lined up and behaved. She learned fast, not because she was clever, but because she was hungry for it. The teacher noticed and said nothing. Praise came later, folded into a book placed on her desk without a word. At midday, the girl heard her name again. She stiffened. It was the shopkeeper this time. At the door, hat crushed. "There's talk," he said. "They're saying you were paid for." The old heat rose. Bought. Burden. She felt the room lean. The teacher cleared her throat. "Say it again," she said, calm as weather. The shopkeeper did. He finished. He looked at the floor. "I told them what I saw." The teacher nodded. "Then that's enough," she said. The class went back to sums. The girl's hands shook. She wrote anyway. Winter pressed. The house answered. The girl learned how to mend, how to listen for cracks, how to stand when a voice tried to make her small again. The woman taught her to write her name slow and sure. The man taught her to throw a rope and not expect it to obey the first time. One afternoon, the fence rattled. The deputy stood there with the paper folded wrong again. "He's gone," he said. "Headed south. Took work with the rail." The girl felt something loosen that she hadn't known was clenched. The wanting rose, changed shape, settled. "Will he come back?" she asked. "Maybe," the deputy said. "Maybe not." That night, the house was loud in small ways. Laughter that surprised itself. A dropped spoon. The woman brought out the ribbon and cut it cleanly in two. She tied one half to the chair back again. She placed the other in the girl's palm. "Markers," she said, "not promises." The girl slept deep. She dreamed of roads that didn't argue and hands that let go when asked. Morning brought snow and a knock that felt different. The shopkeeper stood with a bundle. "For school," he said, and held out a coat that had once belonged to someone taller. The girl took it and felt the weight of what was being returned, piece by piece. At supper, the children asked questions that were not traps. What book next? "Can you show me that letter again?" The girl answered and felt something click into place. Later, by lamplight, the woman read a passage about a child who asked a question and was answered with a road. The girl listened and thought of the square, the paper, the fence. The wanting was quieter now. Not gone. Quieter. Outside, the bell rang once. The sound traveled and came back changed. The girl stood by the window and watched snow erase tracks. The crowd had learned something, she thought. How to breathe. How to wait. "I didn't know it could be like this," she thought. Not perfect. Not finished. But held. The house breathed with her. The line held. Money arrived the way it always did. Quiet, folded, pretending to be clean. It came in an envelope with no return name and a seal pressed too hard. The woman found it on the table after school, set there by a hand that had not knocked. She did not open it right away. She washed her hands first, slow, as if the water could teach patience something new. The girl watched from the doorway. The wanting rose, not for the money, but for what money promised to end. Paper could end arguments. Paper could close doors. Paper could make the square stop leaning. The man stood by the stove, mending a strap that didn't need it. He didn't look at the envelope. He knew what it would ask. The woman opened it and slid the contents onto the table. Bills, crisp, more than they'd seen together in a long while. A note lay on top, ink pressed deep. For the trouble. For the winter. For the child. The girl's breath went shallow. Bott tried to put its boots on again. She pressed the ribbon and felt the bite. "What do we do?" she asked, and surprised herself by asking. The woman folded the note and set it aside. "We don't take it," she said. Not loud, not careful. "Not for you." The man nodded once like a fence post set deeper. "We don't sell," he said. The girl swallowed. The wanting surged anyway. If they took it, the deputy would stop asking. The church would stop hovering. The crowd would stop learning. The road would quiet. She saw all of it, bright and tempting. What if... She stopped. The word "if" had teeth. The woman met her eyes. "Then the line breaks," she said, "and it won't remember where it was." They sent the money back with a single sentence written plain. "Not for sale." The woman signed it and did not add a reason. Reasons were a kind of bargaining. That afternoon, the town noticed. It always did. A murmur started at the shop and slid toward the schoolyard. The teacher heard it and did not repeat it. The girl heard it anyway, felt it move like a draft under the door. They could have taken it, someone said. They're foolish. Another voice. They're proud. Proud was a word that cut two ways. The girl carried it home like a stone. By dusk, the deputy stood on the step again, hat in hand. He did not sit. You sent it back, he said. Yes, the woman said. He rubbed his face. You know that makes it harder. Yes, the woman said again. The man shifted his weight. Hard isn't wrong, he said. The deputy sighed. There'll be another hearing, he said. Not for custody, for guardianship. Temporary. Temporary tasted like waiting with your coat on. The girl felt the old heat. When? Soon, he said, before the thaw. After he left, the house went quiet in a way that felt earned. Supper tasted thinner. The children picked at it and then ate anyway. The girl washed her bowl and set it down and stood too long by the sink. That night, the wanting woke her. She sat up and listened to the house breathe. She slid out of bed and padded to the kitchen. The envelope sat there again, returned by the world like a dare. She stared at it. If I take it, she thought, everything stops. The line smooths. No one gets hurt because of me. She reached for it and stopped. Her hand shook. She thought of the floor, the sack, the word decide. She folded the envelope and pushed it back where it had been. I am not for sale, she thought, and the thought burned and steadied. Morning brought a hard sky and harder news. The man from town had not gone as far as the rail. He'd circled back to the edge of county, found work that paid in drink. He'd been seen with men who borrowed courage from each other. The rumor came with a look that asked, what would you do now? The woman listened and said nothing. The man tightened a bolt and said nothing. The girl felt the question land on her shoulders like snow that refused to fall off. What if standing isn't enough? They went to town anyway. The school bell rang. The girl read aloud without stumbling. At recess, a boy asked her if she was rich now. She looked at his boots and shrugged. I'm fed, she said. He accepted that and ran off. At midday, the pastor came by with soup and a message folded into his sleeve. They're calling the hearing for tomorrow, he said. They want witnesses. The woman nodded. We'll come. That night, the woman laid out the notebook and the girl's papers side by side. You don't have to speak, she said. You can, or you can let us. The girl traced her name. The letters stood straight. I'll speak, she said. The wanting tried to argue and failed. The hearing room smelled of thawed wool and ink that had been warmed by hands. The deputy sat with two others who had learned how to listen. The man from town did not come. He sent a cousin with a jaw set too hard and eyes that didn't meet anyone's. They refused payment, the cousin said, quick. They want something else. What? The deputy asked. The cousin shrugged. Control. The woman stood. She did not open the notebook. We refused payment, she said, because payment would change what this is. And what is it? The deputy asked. The woman looked at the girl. The man did not move. The girl stood. Her knees held. It's a choice, she said. One I get to make. Murmurs rose. A woman in the back nodded. A man frowned. The deputy raised a hand. "Temporary guardianship," he said, "with conditions, schooling, food, no payment, no transfer of claim." The cousin laughed. "She'll change her mind." "Maybe," the deputy said. "Then she will." The paper was signed. Ink dried. Temporary settled like a stone you could step on without knowing how long it would last. Outside, the sky cracked and snow began again, late and stubborn. The girl felt relief and fear braid together. Temporary meant time. Time meant testing. They walked home under flakes that stung. At the gate, the man stopped. "I won't take money for you," he said, not looking at her. "Not now. Not ever." "I know," she said. The words warmed her. That evening, a knock came that asked nothing. 3 men stood with the man from town between them. He looked smaller, anger leached out by cold. "They say you won," he said to the woman. "They say she chose." The woman did not answer. The man did not move. The girl stepped forward until the fence met her hip. "I chose," she said, "and I choose again." He laughed, tired. "You think you're better?" "No," she said. "I think I'm mine." He stared. For a moment, something like understanding tried to stand and failed. He spat and turned away, pulled by his borrowed courage. The others followed. The fence did its work. Later, by lamplight, the woman cut another length of ribbon and tied it to the chair. 3 now. Markers, not promises. The girl held the loose end and felt the wanting quiet. Outside, the crowd moved and learned and forgot and learned again. Inside, the line held because they kept it that way. Temporary or not, the choice stood on its feet. Tomorrow would ask again. Tonight, that was enough. Temporary did not feel temporary. It felt like a floor that might give if you stepped wrong. The paper sat in the drawer with the others, edges already soft from being checked too often. The woman did not frame it. The man did not mention it. The girl learned where it lived and did not touch it. Knowing was enough. Winter leaned harder. The creek locked over. The road forgot itself. The house answered with work that had no opinions. Wood to split, water to haul, a latch to fix that caught on cold mornings. The girl's hands learned a new ache, honest and clean. The wanting came less often now. When it did, it came disguised as worry. "What if they change their minds?" she asked one night, staring at the flame. "They might," the woman said. "We don't plan on fear." The man nodded. "We plan on weather." School closed for a week when the snow took the roof's nerve. The girl read by lamplight and taught the younger ones their sums. Teaching felt different than learning. Lighter, like passing a weight hand to hand so no one dropped it. On the 4th day, a rider came hard from town. The horse steamed. The rider didn't wait to be asked in. "They're pushing," he said. "There's a fund. Folks say you could end it now." The girl's heart jumped. End it. The words were sweet and dangerous. The woman set the kettle down without pouring. "End what?" "The arguing," the rider said. "The hearings, the noise. Take the money, sign the paper, be done." The man leaned on the table. "Whose money?" "Whoever's," the rider said. "Church folks, shopkeepers, even the railman. They say it's mercy." Mercy with strings. The girl saw them coil. Bought tried to lift its head again. She pressed the ribbon and felt the bite. "No," the woman said. "We won't." The rider frowned. "You'd be secure." The woman met his eyes. "She'd be owned." The rider left with his mouth set wrong. Snow took his tracks. That afternoon, the pressure found another door. The deputy came, not smiling. "They're organizing," he said. "It'll be loud." The man shrugged. "Loud doesn't move fences." The girl felt the old heat and the new fear braid together. "What if they make you choose?" she asked the woman, and surprised herself by asking it out loud. The woman took a long breath. "Then I choose the line," she said, "even if it costs." That night, the girl woke to voices outside. She slipped from bed and stood at the window. Lanterns bobbed. A dozen figures gathered near the gate, hats low, breath white. The house did not pretend not to see them. The man opened the door before knocking could begin. He stood with his hands open. "Say it," he said. A man stepped forward with a paper rolled tight. "We've raised enough," he said, "for schooling, for food, for the winter and the next. Sign this. Take the money. Make it official." The woman came to stand beside the man. She took the paper and unrolled it. The lantern light showed lines meant to be generous and were not. "Permanent guardianship," she read, "in exchange for funds. And peace." "Oh," the man said. "You'll have peace." The girl stepped forward until the fence touched her hip. Her heart hammered. She could end it. She could end all of it with a nod. The wanting screamed. The woman didn't look at the girl. That mattered. She looked at the paper. "No," she said. "We won't trade her voice for your quiet." A murmur rose. "You think you're better," someone said. "No," the woman said. "We think she is." The man with the paper scoffed. "You're refusing help." "We're refusing purchase," the man said. The crowd shifted. Some faces hardened, some softened. A woman near the back set her lantern down. "She should choose," she said, small but steady. All eyes went to the girl. The cold bit her lungs. She tasted iron. She thought of the floor, the sack, the medicine sold for drink. She thought of soup at the church and a fence that learned how to be a fence. "I choose not to be paid for," she said. "I choose to stay without a price." Silence followed, clean and hard. The man with the paper rolled it back up. "You'll regret this," he said, and turned away. Lanterns bobbed and went. The night returned to itself. Inside, the girl's hands shook. The woman wrapped them in the ribbon and held them until they steadied. "That was the limit," she said softly, "of what we can do for you without taking from you." The words sat heavy. Limit. Savior. The girl nodded. "Thank you," she said, and meant the refusal more than anything else. Morning brought consequences. The school teacher arrived with her coat still on. "They're angry," she said, "but they're listening." At midday, the man from town returned, alone, thinner, eyes hollow. He stopped at the fence and did not cross it. "They offered money," he said. "You said no." "Yes," the woman said. He laughed, a sound like breaking ice. "Figures." The girl stepped forward. "You don't get to sell me," she said. "And they don't either." He looked at her for a long time. Something in him tried to stand, and failed. "I never learned how not to," he said. "That's not my lesson," she said, and the words surprised her by not hurting. He nodded once and left. The fence did its work. Days stacked again. The house held. The town argued and learned and forgot, and learned again. The girl's life settled into something like a shape. Temporary still lived in the drawer, but it felt less sharp. One evening, the woman brought out the notebook and set it aside. "There will be a final hearing," she said. "Not soon, but it's coming." The girl breathed. "What happens then?" "You choose again," the woman said. The man added, "And we stand again." That night, the girl dreamed of a road that forked and did not rush her. She woke with snowlight on the ceiling and a quiet in her chest she had never known. Not certainty, not safety. Something better, agency. She dressed and went to the kitchen. The stove warmed. The house breathed. Outside, the world waited. Temporary or not, the line had been tested. It had held because they refused to cross it for comfort. The girl tied the ribbon and felt its familiar bite. "I'm still mine," she thought. And for now, that was enough. The hearing did not come with a trumpet. It came on a morning that looked like any other, gray and careful, the kind that asked you to put your boots on twice. The paper arrived folded wrong, edges soft from too many hands. The woman read it once and set it down. The man nodded. The girl tied the ribbon and felt the familiar bite. They walked to town without hurrying. The road did not argue. Snow had learned where not to linger. At the office, the benches were straighter than before, as if the room had practiced. Fewer faces this time. The crowd had thinned to those who mattered. The deputy sat with his pen ready. The pastor waited near the door. The shopkeeper stood at the back, hat off. The man from town did not come. That mattered too. "This isn't a trial," the deputy said. "It's a question." He looked at the girl. "Where do you want to be?" The word where felt kinder than whose. The girl breathed. 4 in, 5 out. She thought of the house that woke early. The stove coaxed awake. The way her name sounded when the woman said it without hurry. She thought of being fed without being counted, of being asked before or being taken. "I want to stay," she said. The sentence landed clean. No echo. "With conditions," the deputy said, glancing at the paper. "Schooling, Sundays, oversight." "Yes," the woman said. "Yes," the man said. The deputy scratched ink. "Then we'll set it so," he said. "Guardianship, with review. The child's choice stands." The pen lifted. The room breathed. Snow slid off the eaves outside with a sound like relief. They walked back through town, and the town let them pass. No cheering, no curses, just space. At the edge of the road, the man stopped and rested a hand on the fence post like he was learning it by touch. "It's done enough," he said. The girl nodded. Done enough felt right. At the house, warmth waited. The children hovered and then remembered themselves. The woman set soup on. Ordinary acts took their places. The girl sat and ate and felt the wanting quiet to a hum she could live with. Later, when the light shifted, the woman brought out the ribbon and set it on the table. She did not cut it this time. She smoothed it flat. "There's a word," she said, careful. "You don't have to use it. Ever." The girl knew the word. It pressed at her chest and hurt. She looked at the woman's hands. steady and ink-stained. She looked at the man's shoulders, squared by habit, not claim. She felt the house breathe. "I'm not ready," she said. The woman nodded. "That's enough." The man said nothing. He poured tea. He set the cup within reach and stepped back. That mattered. Evening came. Snow fell light and patient. The girl stood by the window and watched tracks fill in. A memory rose, knees on wood, flour in her hair, and then slid away, replaced by the smell of soup and soap. She pressed the ribbon and felt no need to tighten it. Later still, the woman read by lamplight. The man fixed a hinge that did not need it. The children slept. The girl sat at the table and practiced her letters until they stood straight without effort. She wrote her name once more and did not feel like she was asking permission. When she went to bed, the quilt warmed her the way quilts do when they know their job. The house settled. Outside, the world kept its distance. In the night, she woke and listened. No voices, no knocks, only the stove's small sigh and the wind testing corners it would not win. She lay back and closed her eyes. "I'm here," she thought. Not owned, not borrowed. Here. Morning would bring chores and school and weather. Oversight would come and go. Paper would be checked and put away. None of that frightened her now. At breakfast, the woman slid a plate across and smiled, small. The man nodded. The girl ate and felt something like a family take shape, not announced, not named, but formed by standing in the same place long enough to be seen. The ribbon lay on the table, red against wood. Not a promise. A marker. She left it there and went to split kindling, the sound clean and true. Winter loosened its hold without apology. Snow thinned along the fence posts. Paths remembered their names. The house stayed warm because someone kept feeding the stove, not because the season had grown kind. The girl woke before the light learned how to stand. She lay still and listened, wood ticking as it cooled, the man's boots crossing the floor once and stopping, the soft close of the woman's book. Ordinary sounds. She kept them the way you keep proof. They went to town and came back with flour and nails and nothing that needed explaining. The crowd had learned how to give space. The bell rang once and did not insist. A paper star still hung in a window, edges curled, someone choosing to leave it where it was. At home, bread rose under cloth. The woman's hands moved with the calm of things that would happen whether you watched or not. The man fixed a latch that caught in the wind. The girl swept and found less to sweep than before. The wanting came and went, a tide that knew the shore now. In the afternoon, the deputy came by without ceremony, hat in hand, no paper shown. "Everything stands," he said. "We'll come when we're asked." "When we're asked," the woman said, and the words settled like a stone placed right. Dusk arrived early. The man stacked wood. The woman lit a single candle by the window. "For the road," she said, "and for whoever needs it." The flame leaned and steadied. The girl watched it and felt her chest tighten with something sharp and bright. Gratitude had edges. She had been carrying a word for days, turning it over until it grew heavy. She set her hands flat on the table to keep them from shaking. She stopped. The room waited without leaning. She looked at the woman's ink-stained fingers. She looked at the man's shoulders, squared by habit, not claim. The house breathed. "Mama," she said. The word cracked the air. It did not echo. The woman did not reach for her. She did not flinch. Her breath caught once and let go. The man turned his back, busy with nothing, giving the moment a wide berth. The girl's heart hammered. The word felt true and too much at the same time, like a coat that swallowed her. She swallowed hard. She shook her head. I'm not ready. The woman nodded, slow. You don't owe any name, she said. Not now, not later. Names aren't receipts. Relief rushed through the girl, chased by a small ache she let pass. She touched the ribbon and felt the familiar bite. Markers, not promises. They ate in a quiet that held. After, the woman wrapped bread for morning. The man banked the fire. The girl washed her bowl and stood a moment longer than needed, learning the shape of stillness. Outside, snow began again, light and patient. The girl stepped onto the porch and watched it come, flakes catching on her sleeve and melting. The world felt wide and held at the same time. She thought of the floor and the sack and the word decide. She thought of the fence that had learned how to be a fence. She thought of paper that tried to be brave and sometimes was. She thought of the word she had said, and the way setting it down did not mean losing it. I don't have to hurry, she thought. The thought loosened something deep. Later, in bed, she listened to the house breathe. No knocks, no raised voices, only the stove's small sigh and the wind testing corners it would not win. The candle by the window burned low and steady. Morning came without asking and found her ready. She dressed, tied the ribbon once, and went to split kindling. The sound rang clean and true. The man nodded from the doorway. The woman poured tea and set a cup within reach and stepped back. They stood together in the small space between tasks and names and seasons, not claimed, not counted, chosen and choosing still. The girl left the ribbon on the table and went outside. Snow filled in the tracks behind her. The road waited. Not everything was finished. Not everything needed to be. The family had not been named, but it had formed by refusal, by patience, by a line that held. She breathed. 4 in, 5 out. For now, that was enough.